So, we're going to be learning about circles in the coordinate plane. However, before we do, tell me what this is. It is not the slope formula. Okay. Okay, it's slope-intercept form. And it's the equation of a what? Like if you graphed it, what would it look like? A line. A line. Right. Okay. So, it is a linear equation called a linear equation because it graphs a line. Okay. Now, give me an example of a linear equation that you could actually graph in this form. Yeah. Y equals 1x plus 3. Okay. Where the 1 represents the what? Slope, and the 3 represents the, very good. If we were going to graph it, we would go up 3 to the y-intercept first, and then count our slope. Up 1 over 1, up 1 over 1, and we would get our line. Okay, so the m turned into a number, representing the slope. The b turned into a number, representing the y-intercept. What do the x and y represent? Yeah. It's related to that, but it's not the axes. The x and y in this equation represents what? Okay, it actually represents all the points that would fall on this line, right? So x-y combination, let's say there's a point right here on this line. That's an x-y combination that would make this equation true, right? If we made x like -3, then y would be, actually let's make it -4, right? -4 plus 3 would be -1, right? So if I plugged in -4 here, I would get -1 here. And the point -4, -1 would have to be on the line. So it's every x-y combination that makes that equation true. All right, so what does that have to do with circles? Well, because that's a formula that you are familiar with and you've graphed before. This is the equation that will graph a circle. It always has this form. X minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. Yes, it looks a lot more complicated. Don't freak out because you're not going to have to distribute and FOIL and do any solving that's complicated. It's just the form of the equation. So we're literally just going to plug into this equation. Now, important to recognize that the center is the HK, okay, and the radius is R. Okay, so that's what it means in this equation. H and HK is the ordered pair that represents the center. R is the radius. So what does the X and Y represent? Every point on the circle. Okay, it's every XY combination of ordered pairs that graph the line, the points on the circle. Okay. Does this equation look sort of like something we've done before? Distance formula. No, doesn't it look just like the distance formula? It definitely does. The reason it looks like the distance formula is because both of those things, the distance formula and the equation of a circle, are derived from the same theorem. What theorem's that?
The theorem that we all forgot.
Something squared plus something squared equals something squared. Pythagorean theorem.
Oh, that's awesome.
Okay, so just really briefly, I'm going to kind of explain why that is the equation of a circle. The radius right here, I could draw a radius in any direction, right? And the center could be anywhere. And the radius could be any size, right? Circles are kind of unlimited. But if I draw this radius, any radius, I could drop a line straight down. I could put a line straight horizontal, and I've created a right triangle. Right? And I could do that from anywhere, because if I drew my radius over here even, then my line would go up and over, and I would still make a right triangle. And in every single case, the radius is the hypotenuse of that right triangle. Okay, so what? So what is the distance from here to here? Well, we would have to know the ordered pair of this point. So let's make something up just for the purpose of seeing how this works. If I make this point the point 10, 12, that's this point right here, okay? And the center, I'm going to put at the point 4, 5. All right? So, what's that distance? If this is the point 10, 12, how far up is that point? Think about how you plot that point. You have to go over and up. How far do you go up? 12. I know some of you said it earlier, but yeah. So that distance there is 12. All right? So what is this distance here? 10. Because to get to that point, I had to go over 10 and up 12. You with me so far? Okay. What is that distance? If that's the point 4, 5, what's that distance? 5. So same distance right here. Right? Same distance, same height up. Okay. What's this length right here? 4. So what's this length right here? 6, right? Because the entire distance is 10. And from here to here is 4, so this has to be 6. So now I have this triangle. I'm going to redraw the triangle. And this distance is 6, you just told me, right? What's this blue distance? Right here. 7, because the entire thing is 12. This piece is 5. That makes this 7. So to get what r is, you would do Pythagorean theorem, right? 6 squared plus 7 squared equals r squared. All right, so let's talk about how we got that 6. How did we get that 6? 10 minus 4. Oh, you mean h minus k? I mean x minus h is what I meant. And how did we get this 7? 12 minus 5, which is y minus k. So this formula is literally the Pythagorean theorem. A squared plus b squared equals c squared. X minus h gets you one length. Y minus k gets you the other. Yep. Best way to learn this is to just start doing it. Okay? So here we are, down here at the practice. The equation is x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared, where hk is the center, and they're asking us to find the center and the radius. So here's the equation that they're giving us, and they want us to give the center and the radius. Well, if the equation says x plus 3, and our formula said x minus h, then what must h be? -3, right? Because if x minus h turns into an x plus 3, then h must have been a -3. X minus a -3 would turn into x plus 3. You see that? Okay. What's k? +5, because it's y minus k, y minus 5. Okay, so what's the center? If the center is hk, then the center is at point what? -3, 5. R squared is 49, because that's what's in this formula here. So what's R? Square root of 49, which is 7. Capiche? Easy, right? Okay, let's do the next one. Center is at what point? 4, 7. Do you kind of see that the signs are sort of opposite of what you see in the equation, right? When you see a plus, x plus something, then it's going to be a negative x value as your center. And when you see minus, it's going to be a positive value. Okay, so here they were both minus, so the center is +4, +7. All right, and what's the radius? Well, r squared is 18, right? So what's r? Square root of 18. How could we simplify that radical? Square root of 9, square root of 2, 3 root 2. Very good. Now, sometimes you'll be able to write that as a decimal, but it's good to practice doing your simplifying of radicals. All right, the next one is just an x squared. If it's just an x squared, then what's h? So the h in this case is just 0. So the center is at 0, comma, what's the k? -8. And the radius is square root of 81, which is 9. Now D is just x squared and just y squared. So now is when the center is the origin. So the center is at the point 0, 0, which is the origin. And the radius is square root of 1, which is just 1. Now, it's worth noting that the equation of a circle with the center at the origin always looks like that. X squared plus y squared equals some number. So you should recognize that. If you see an equation that says x squared plus y squared equals 25 or whatever, that's the equation of a circle with a radius of 5 and the center at the origin. So I don't really teach it as two separate formulas because it's the same thing, just that h and k are 0, 0. All right, so now we're going to reverse the process here. They're going to give us the center and the radius, and we have to write the equation of the circle. Am I going to give you the formula on the test? Probably not. Sure. Okay, so always, 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 your equation is going to have this format, where this is x and this is y, right? So just like in our linear equations, where the x stayed x and the y stayed y, when we're writing the equation of a circle, you have to have your x and your y, and the other things become the numbers. So if the center is 5, 2, that's our hk, this is going to be x minus 5 and y plus 2. See, it's like switch the signs. Radius is 7, so this number here should be 49. That's it. That is the way you write your answer. You don't change anything. You don't have to multiply anything, simplify anything. That is just the way you write it. Okay? Okay, so you guys try 3 and 4. So this one should have turned out to be x squared plus y minus 5 squared equals 36. And this one is x plus 2 squared plus y plus 1 squared equals, and the square root of 2 squared is just a whole number 2. Right? If you square a square root, it just becomes the whole number. Okay, so now this next question gives us the center, but does not give us the radius. We need the center and the radius to write the equation of the circle. So what they do give us is a point on the circle. The point 2, 2 is on the circle. So does anybody have an idea of how we could get this equation? Peter? You could absolutely do the distance formula from the center to the point, right? Using x1, y1, x2, y2, doing the distance formula, you could get the length of the radius. This is true. However, there's another way to do it. Yes. So since the distance formula basically is the circle equation, right? We talked about that. What they've given us here is an xy. Okay, so what I like to do with a problem like this is first start with what you know. We're asked to write the equation of a circle. We know it has to look like this. That's going to be my final answer box right there. Right? I know it has to look like that. Is there anything I can fill in right away? Yeah, the center. We know the center is 1, -3, so this is -1 and +3. Already I'm getting partial credit, if nothing else, right? Got that much done. Now, I need to fill in that last part. So what these guys were saying in here is they've given us an x and a y here. So can't we just plug that in? And the answer is absolutely yes. We know our equation is something -1 and y +3. Plug this in for x and that in for y. So an x they gave us was 2, and the y they gave us is also 2. Yep. You could accept that, so the question was, could we count out the radius? And the problem is that it's hard to tell on a circle if the radius is going right through an actual grid mark. And believe it or not, in this case, it's not. This 1, 2, 3, 4, you might guess that it's 5, and it's actually a little bit more than 5. So unfortunately, our graphs are not precise enough for you to be able to tell exactly what that decimal is. So you really, you know, if it's super clear and they put a point on there, then yes, you can just count the radius. Okay, but here we are. 2 minus 1 is 1 squared, plus 2 plus 3 is 5 squared equals r squared. 1 squared is 1, 5 squared is 25. What's r squared? 26. Okay, you might be tempted now to like solve for r, but do we have to? No, because this is asking us to write the equation of a circle, and it's literally equal to r squared. And we know what r squared equals, so we just put the 26 right there. And that's my final answer, equation of the circle. Guys, try 5 and 6. Okay, so I meant do 6 and 7. For number 6, you should have x minus 4 squared plus y minus 3 squared equals, and then you plug this in for x and y. You end up with a radius squared of 29. Okay? For number 7, the center's at the origins. Remember, that's the point 0, 0. And remember, an equation with the center at the origin basically looks like this, and it's going to be equal to r squared. So we're just going to plug in 4 for x and 7 for y. 4 squared plus 7 squared equals r squared, and this turns out to be 65. Any questions? Okay, so last thing here is to graph the circle. Graphing the circle is basically the same exact skill, and then putting it on the coordinate plane. The important thing here is that you can identify where the center is and what the radius is. So what is the center of this 8-part A? 2, -7. Now, don't forget how to graph a point. Where do we start when we graph a point? At the origin. And then do we go left or right first, or up or down first? Left or right. And this is a positive 2, so I'm going to go to the right 2. And then -7 means I go down 7. And we put a point at 2, -7. What's the radius? 3. Right? Radius is 3. So there are 4 points that you can absolutely find for sure on this graph. And they are exactly 3 up, exactly 3 to the left, exactly 3 down, and exactly 3 to the right. So those are the only points you can actually graph for sure. And what you want to do then is think about connecting these in a circular pattern. I find it helpful to think about it one semicircle at a time. I kind of think about making a rainbow that goes through those, and then a rainbow that goes through those, and then, you know, it's kind of circular. If you think about connecting the dots, sometimes it comes out a little squarish. Okay, so try B and C. Again, I want you to make sure you're identifying where the center is and where the radius is for each one. All right, so the center here should be -4, +1. So I go back to the left 4 and up 1. Radius is 5. I'm going to go to the right 5, up 5, left 5, and down 5. And again, instead of thinking about connecting dots, think about drawing a semicircle. Think of it like a rainbow. I kind of missed that one. And there's the circle. This one, the center should be 3, 0. Radius is 1. Over 3, up 0. And a nice little tight circle there. Radius of 1.